there lived a man named Job. He was not a king. He was not a prophet. Yet the Bible describes him with rare words: blameless, upright, a man who feared God and turned away from evil. Job was blessed beyond measure. He had thousands of animals, servants who cared for his land, and 10 children whom he loved deeply. Every morning, Job prayed, not just for himself, but for his children. Because even in blessing, Job feared God. But what Job did not know was that his name had been spoken in heaven. Today, you'll hear the story of a man who lost everything in a single day and still trusted God. Life in the land of Uz was a symphony of peace. Every morning, the sun broke over the horizon like a promise, bathing Job's vast fields in a liquid gold. His servants did not work under the weight of a master's hand, but with a spirit of shared joy, their songs carrying across the valleys as they tended to the thousands of lives under Job's care. But the true heartbeat of Uz was found in the laughter of Job's children. They were a family bound by more than blood, they were bound by celebration. Often, the 7 brothers would open their homes, inviting their 3 sisters to feast. In these moments, under the glow of oil lamps and the scent of roasted grain, life felt eternal. They celebrated the gift of being together, unaware that these were the golden days. Yet, while the wine was poured and the laughter echoed, Job's heart remained anchored in humility. He knew that the higher the mountain of blessing, the easier it is to lose sight of the valley of grace. As the embers of the feast cooled and the world fell into silence, Job would rise. Long before the first bird sang, he stood at the altar. His prayer was a father's shield. "Perhaps my children have sinned in their hearts," he would whisper into the morning mist. Job understood a truth that many often forget: blessings are not a reason to turn away from the Creator. They are the greatest reason to fall on your knees and worship Him more. The scene shifts from the dust of Uz to a realm beyond human sight. Scripture tells us that on a day unlike any other, the heavenly hosts, the sons of God, assembled before the throne of the Almighty. But among the beings of light, there walked a shadow, an accuser. Satan had arrived. The voice of God, like the sound of many waters, broke the silence. He spoke not of galaxies or stars, but of a man. "Have you considered my servant Job?" the Lord asked. "There is no one like him on all the earth. A man of integrity. A man who is blameless and upright." But the accuser sneered, his voice dripping with venomous logic. "Does Job fear God for nothing?" he countered. "You have built a hedge around him. You have armored his life and blessed the work of his hands until his wealth overflows the land. But stretch out your hand. Strip away the walls. Touch all he has, and he will curse you to your very face." The challenge was set. God granted the request, but set a divine boundary. "Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only upon the man himself you shall not lay a hand." In that moment, the peace of Uz was broken. A supernatural storm began to gather on the horizon, moving with a dark and terrible purpose toward the house of Job. The day began with the same golden peace Uz had always known. But that peace was a thin veil. Without warning, a servant stumbled into Job's courtyard, breathless, bloodied, and trembling. "The Sabaeans," he cried. "They fell upon the oxen. They put the servants to the sword. I, and I alone, have escaped to tell you." Before the words could even settle, a second messenger burst through the gates. "The fire of God fell from the heavens," he shrieked. "The sheep and the shepherds are consumed. I am the only one left." Then, while he was yet speaking, a third arrived. The Chaldeans. They formed 3 bands and swept away the camels. Your people are slaughtered. I alone am left to bring the news. The air grew thick with the smell of smoke and the weight of death. But the final messenger moved slower than the rest. His face was a mask of grief. His voice was a whisper. Your children, he gasped. A great wind from the wilderness struck the corners of the house. It fell. And they are all gone. The silence that followed was deafening. There was no scream of rage. No curse directed at the sky. Slowly, Job stood. He reached for his robe and tore it in 2. He shaved his head, a sign of total mourning. Then, he did the unthinkable. He fell to the dusty earth, and he worshipped. Naked I came from my mother's womb, he whispered through the tears. And naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Once more, the celestial courts fell silent as the shadow returned. Despite the ruins of Uz, despite the 10 fresh graves, Job had not broken. But the accuser was not finished. Skin for skin, he hissed, his voice a cold wind against the light. A man will give all he has for his own life. But stretch out your hand now, strike his bone and his flesh. Touch his very body, and he will surely curse you to your face. The father's voice was a low rumble of sovereign sorrow. Behold, he spoke, he is in your hand. But you must spare his life. With that permission, the second wave of darkness descended, not as a storm, but as a plague. From the soles of his feet to the crown of his head, Job was struck with agonizing, burning sores. The man who once sat on the seat of honor now sat in the dirt of the cities a sheep. He took a piece of broken pottery, scraping his inflamed skin, his body a map of suffering, his breath a prayer of agony. Even the one closest to his heart could no longer bear the sight. His wife, her own heart shattered by the loss of her children, looked at the shell of the man she loved. Do you still hold fast to your integrity? She cried through her tears. Curse God, and die. But Job looked at her through eyes clouded with pain, yet crystal clear with faith. You speak as a foolish woman speaks, he replied softly. Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity? Word of the catastrophe traveled like fire through the desert. 3 of Job's closest friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, journeyed from their distant lands to offer comfort. But as they crested the final hill and looked upon the ash heap, they stopped in their tracks. The man sitting in the dust was unrecognizable. The prince of Uz was gone, only a shadow remained. They did not speak. They did not offer hollow platitudes. They tore their robes, threw dust upon their heads, and sat with him in the dirt. For 7 days and 7 nights, they stayed in a silence so heavy it felt like stone. Not a word was uttered, for they saw that his grief was too deep for human language. But eventually, the silence broke, and the comfort turned into a trial. Bound by their own limited understanding, the friends began to whisper, surely, God does not punish the innocent. Confess your hidden sins, Job. Admit your guilt, and the sun will rise again. They believed that suffering was always a receipt for sin. But Job's integrity was his last remaining possession, and he would not let it go. He did not curse God, but he did not hide his agony. I am upright, he cried out to the empty sky. Why has the Almighty targeted me? Why does the Creator remain silent while my bones burn with fire? Job was not rebelling, he was hemorrhaging questions. And though the sky remained dark, the ears of heaven were still leaning in. The debate of men was suddenly silenced. The air grew heavy, and a terrifying wind began to spiral down from the heavens, churning the dust of Uzi into a massive, glowing vortex. Out of the heart of the whirlwind, the voice of the Almighty finally broke the long silence. He did not come to offer an apology. He came to reveal the majesty that sustains the stars. The voice thundered through the storm, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding. Have you ever, in all your days, commanded the morning to break? Have you walked the hidden depths of the sea, or seen the gates of death?" God did not explain the why of Job's suffering. Instead, he pointed to the who of creation. Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loose the belt of Orion? Do you give the horse its strength? Does the eagle soar at your command? Before the infinite greatness of God, Job's questions dissolved like mist in the sun. He didn't need an explanation anymore, he had an encounter. Prostrate in the dust once more, Job whispered, "I have spoken of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me. I had heard of you with my ears, but now my eyes see you." The storm had passed, and in its wake, the silence was no longer heavy, it was holy. God looked upon his servant, the man who had stood the test, and the season of sorrow came to an end. The Almighty rebuked those who had doubted Job's heart, and as Job prayed for his friends, the hand of blessing returned to the land of Uz. What was lost in a single day was restored with a double portion. The fields were once again filled with life. 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, and a wealth that dwarfed his former life. But it wasn't just gold and livestock, it was a renewal of the spirit. The silence of the empty house was replaced by the laughter of new life. Job was blessed with 7 more sons and 3 more daughters, the most beautiful in all the land. The man who once sat in the cold ashes of despair now stood in the warm, enduring light of God's favor. Job lived for many years after, seeing his children and his children's children to the 4th generation. He died old and full of days, leaving behind a legacy that would echo through eternity, that even when you cannot see his hand, you can always trust his heart. The story of Job is not just a tale of ancient loss and restoration. It is a mirror for our own lives. It teaches us a truth that is often hard to hear: faith is not truly proven in the seasons of comfort. It is revealed in the fire of suffering. Job never lost his faith because he realized a secret that changed everything. Even when he lost sight of God's plan, God never for a single moment lost sight of Job. In the ashes, in the silence, and in the storm, he was there. If this journey through the life of Job has touched your heart today, we invite you to join our community. Please like, subscribe, and share this story. Your support is the fuel that helps us spread the light of God's word to every corner of the world. Until we meet again, may your faith stand firm, unshakable and bright, even when the answers are delayed and the night seems long. God bless you. If you were moved by the story of a man who lost everything and stayed faithful, you won't want to miss our next journey. Next time, we tell the tale of a son who walked away from his father's house, spent everything he had, and found himself in the lowest of places, only to discover that no matter how far you run, the road home is always paved with mercy. The prodigal son, the boy who left, and the father who never stopped waiting. Click the screen to watch it now.